good evening, and welcome to Inside the Rookery, Season 8, Episode 8. You know what that is, Ed?
88, which
88.
isn't... I don't know how I feel about this anymore.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
you
have
might be.
agreed.
I only just noticed it. So Andy Leask is about to join us. I did tell him I wouldn't go live till we were all back, but then I pressed
What?
I pressed the countdown button by mistake, and he's not back from getting his drink of water. So he'll be back in a minute. Welcome to the stream. For those that don't know you as Starter Set Ed from your podcast and from the
Mhm.
LAWhammer cast, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about both the Starter Set podcast and what LAWhammer is?
Yeah, sure. So hello everybody. I'm Ed Silvester, host of the Starter Set podcast and playing the glorious, heroic, noble Gerhardt of House Jungfreud within the LAWhammer stream.
Yeah,
That's what
LAWhammer
we do,
Actual
right?
Play, which is
Actual play
at the
stream. Yeah.
moment fourth Ed with Andy Law's bespoke rules over the top of it, and we're partway through the Enemy Within campaign, and yeah, you can check that out. I'm sure that Andy Leask, now I have successfully ambushed him by clicking the countdown button by accident.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's what happened. We'll be able to put some links in the chat for you all to check out
Well, I'm on it.
Starter Set podcast and LAWhammer. So this week we decided, as LAWhammer's been off for a few weeks, that we would grab a LAWhammer cast member who hasn't been on since it was 3 seasons ago. So it was like season 5, so long ago that you came on.
That's a weird release schedule then, guys, if that's the case. You've done 3 seasons between that. That's like less than a year, maybe? I don't know.
No, I think it was more than a year since the last time you were on. Anyway,
that's
so
fine. Yeah.
There we are. Today we're going to be chatting about long-term PCs, so playing long-term PCs in long-term campaigns, and also the added element of playing them like in front of loads of people in an actual play, and how that changes maybe the way we characterize them or the way we feel about them. So as always, we've had loads of questions pre-submitted by patrons and our lovely Discord community, so I'll be bringing those up. If you have any questions, though, pop them in the chat and I will bring them up on screen and will grill Ed on the questions.
Mainly a calf, if you're going to grill any bit, because that's a nice, juicy...
Gross.
Is that good? That's probably a good cut, right?
We're not halflings, Ed.
That's fine.
So... and some of the questions actually will apply to Andy and I, because we are also both LAWhammer cast members as well and have built our own characters and play our own characters in that campaign, so we may chip in every now and then. So the first question is from Sage, who asks, how have your PCs developed over time compared to what you envisioned their character arc would be at the start? I'm really interested, Ed, in your answer, because I feel like there's a career choice that kind of you weren't expecting at the start of when you first started talking to Andy about Gerhardt.
Yeah.
Or did you? Like, did we just not know that you might go down that route?
So the whole shtick. The nice thing is, right, because it's a long-term game, the whole shtick with Gerhardt is and it links in really nicely, and I didn't even realize that this was a thing, but the whole thing with him has been change, right? It's you start in this position and you go through experiences and he becomes someone else. And in terms of that learning, because what I wanted to do is, we know that the way I play characters is I like to look at their stat line and I use that to inform the way I play them, right? And
of course.
But also like bad fellowship, bad anything physical, bad everything else. So then I was like, right, let's just rely on that and really lean into it, and we can then push that there. But obviously over time, as you gain more fellowship, or as you gain more, I mean, he's still shit at fighting, and that's okay, but like fellowship and willpower and all that sort of thing, that's kind of started to then influence the way that I respond to situations. So he's become a little bit more aware of people's thoughts and feelings and processes. He's going through he's going through a lot. So I didn't know. What's the question? I'll do this. I'll go east, and it's really bad. Like that's not.
How have your PCs developed over time compared to what you envisioned their character arc to be at the start? So you broke up when you were telling us what your highest skill is. For those who couldn't hear you at that point, it's intelligence. He's a really intelligent young man.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Is that
No,
my
no, it's fine.
microphone? Do I need to get more on mic? Hello,
No,
everyone.
I think it was connectivity.
Okay,
So you
that's
just
fine.
kind of froze, and then you came in to say your fellowship was shit, and you were like bad at fighting, but
Yeah.
we didn't know what you were good at because I'd lost you for a moment.
So I'm smart as fuck, basically. Then, so I knew there was gonna be an arc with him, right? And there was always gonna be this thing of I think I said to Andy, I want to be that kid who comes out of university in real life, right, and thinks they knows everything. They're really like self-entitled. They know the way the world should work. They understand like I don't know. They understand or think they understand people, and they're like, I could run this government. I would be able to do that like immediately. I could be prime minister, and then you live properly for.
I can't imagine any examples of that from recent history. Like I'm struggling to find examples from recent history. I don't know.
I think the thing is some people manage to get to that point without just ever getting kicked in the teeth, whereas most people at some point get kicked in the teeth in the right way that you kind of go like, oh shit, I don't know everything. And that's been the envisioned arc, is for Gerhardt to basically get kicked in the teeth enough times that he learns things. Now, in terms of the comparison to the envisioned piece and where they would get to, Gerhardt initially, I was looking at things and trying to, he was going to try and figure out a better way to run the Empire.
Yeah.
Right? And specifically not do it the way that his dad has done it.
Yeah.
Ironically, he's very much falling into the same kind of quasi manipulation piece that his old man's doing.
I would also say what I think Gerhardt has started to realize is there are way worse people at running estates and running lands and running provinces than his dad.
Yeah, for sure. There was a point where he was like, give it back to the people. And then we hit up Bogenhafen and was like,
You met people.
Yeah, exactly. And we did Bogenhafen, and obviously in that environment, if you've played it, I don't feel too bad because that book's been out for ages. And if you haven't played it, then, I mean, come on, guys. Yeah, there you go. See, I've avoided that slightly. But I'm not going to say too much. But obviously, that is an environment where it has been given back slightly to the people, and it still goes tits up.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that everybody in the Warhammer world, like every social strata in the Empire, is corrupted.
Yeah,
like, there's no to paraphrase that recent Thunderbolts trailer, right? It's not good guys and bad guys; it's bad guys and worse guys. So
yes, yeah, nice. So with that in mind, I think he was actually looking at lawyer for a long time. Look, agitator and lawyer.
Yeah, I remember agitator actually, because I remember that's why he ended up crossing paths with certain people in Altdorf, because he'd gone to a printing shop to get some pamphlets printed. Yeah.
Which I can't remember why I wanted to do that now, but that was the thought process. That's that's episode 3. That's fine. People definitely could get to that point by now.
I think you were wanting to do like a propaganda war. I think was
yes, I did. Yeah, Hearts and Minds. And much like people find in their lives, and I say this is my personal opinion. Now he's got so much of his own fucking problems that he can't think about the big pictures anymore, and it's just like, I just need to pay my rent. I just need to make sure I've got some food on the table. I can't deal with large metaphysical questions about good and bad, and I can't go to this march because if I do, I'll miss that train, and I need to go to that train so I can get my shopping for the week. You know what I mean? Those big questions become so much bigger and separated when you have so much more close to home problems. Like Yeah, and then in the same way, he finds that there are problems with other things that are definitely not, and it's almost like, hey, you've got too much easy access to water, and maybe you should think about things slightly differently. So that's me from my end. Do you guys want to jump in and do your malarkey?
I might not be quite quick, I think. So I knowingly went in knowing that I didn't know that much about who Alan Menowith had been before. I didn't. I had a much longer history than the other characters, but we hadn't played through a lot of it, obviously, and she didn't have the experience because she's an elf, so she's like doing it more slowly anyway. And I probably didn't realize quite how profound her secret identities would need to be and how important they were in certain spiritual ways. And that was kind of good because she didn't either. So I feel like in this one case, me not knowing a lot of things and Andy like unpeeling layer by layer by layer, and how that makes me feel is helped me understand, right, that's what I need to do with other people.
Yeah.
And we did like segments from her past where she got some of the teachings of Joros and a bit that happened here, but actually it's just the process of going through it. And in a way, Menowith's history is like constantly being rewritten because of that. She's in a constant state of flux because at any moment there might be but actually, like that was all just another facade, another mask, and another change. So for her theme was like, a fundamental change with what she was before and a continuing series of changes for her spiritual well-being, which is interesting that, yours is change as well has been
I mean, it's almost like change is a central theme of the Enemy Within campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's almost like Andy is a mad genius who knows exactly what he's bloody doing.
Yeah,
I think he just starts
that.
I think he starts a
Inside the
session
Rookery
and throws a dartboard throws a dart at a dartboard and then just goes, all right, this is how I'm going to mess with people this week, and then just plays out with the reactions. There's no plan.
Yeah.
There's no plan. That's the secret.
See, so he would tell you differently in the sense that we've had him on Inside the Rookery to talk about it, and he has a very unique way of envisioning how he GMs the world, which we've said many times is like kind of a god, in that people would ask him like, well, how do you make that decision? He's like, well, I don't make that decision. Like the world just runs. I just check where the characters are and what those characters would do and like what's happened to them since the last time I thought about them. I'm like, wow, it's like a whole world in your head.
But that's exactly. I'm reading Ursula Le Guin's Tales of Earthsea now, the one that's the like novellas and short stories and things. And at the introduction to that for the Folio Society edition, she says exactly the same thing, that she decided to write those because she kind of was thinking about it and she checked back in and was like, oh, the world has moved on since I last wrote about this 20 years ago. And now I've got new stuff to kind of say about it. So, yeah, I think it is a thing that creators do. But
So what about you, Andy? What did you...
Well, I mean,
what did you envision? What did you think he was going to be, your character, Leopold?
Well, I mean, I've spoken a bit about this on the stream before, that the whole seer thing wasn't what I had intended, and it's been good and interesting, and it's definitely added to the story, but it wasn't what I was expecting, and I probably, not saying I wouldn't have done it, but I would have done it differently, I think. So where he's at now, and again, I will avoid spoilers for people that are not totally caught up, but stuff has gone down in Middenheim, and his little spiritual crisis is not resolved. He still has all of the doubts, but he has resolved himself in terms of how he feels about that, and has a kind of renewed sense of like drive and purpose. And so he's sort of become what he was going to become, just by a very different route. He's ended up in the same place that I kind of envisaged him, but just not the way I expected, and with different facets to his character from having been a seer. So
there's a question from the chat here about the future. So do you have character arcs planned, or is that just a rhetorical question, like who plans a character arc before you start again?
That was how I interpreted it.
Did you? Okay, yeah. But do you have do you both have plans for what comes next for your characters?
So it's yes, but
spoilers.
Yes, but either way. So yes is very short term, as in I want to do these things in the next couple of like sessions, and then one of them should be quite a tasty conversation with one of these fellow of these two. Is that how I'm positioned?
Yes,
that's
that's
how
how you're
you're
positioned.
positioned.
Yeah.
That's good. Otherwise, I'm just pointing at nothing.
Yeah.
Which should be quite tasty, and I hopefully get a little bit spicy in terms of fighty. And then there's long term, but I'm too busy focused on just getting my next meal right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So
totally with you on that.
I don't think there's a full A to B to C to D, and that'll do the full arc. But there's definitely a thought process of boop to bap.
And I think, like, for Leopold, like, his arc that I've got planned out is actually not really about him. It's about the world. Like, he's got questions now about his faith, about Sigmar, and about the cult of Sigmar separately, and about the Runefangs, and about Galmaraz, and about, like, he's got questions about those things. And I think the answers he finds to those questions, or the lack of answers that he finds to those questions, that's what's going to shape his character and kind of where he goes. So I'm not going, well, like, I had a sense if I wanted Leopold to become this kind of recommitted warrior priest who was, like, dedicated to that, and he's been totally moving that way, and he's there now. Now he's in a position of, right, let's do the thing. But then what happens when he does the thing remains to be seen. So,
do you think real people have character arcs?
Sorry?
Yeah.
Do you think real people have character arcs?
They definitely have character arcs. Do they have planned character arcs?
Yeah, it's like, I guess if you look at the story of any person's life, you could draw a character arc from it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Do you plan like?
And I think, like, you know, Californians who believe in self-actualization and having those manifestation boards where you write things up, like, they would argue, yeah, I made that happen. You didn't make that happen. It happened. If it hadn't happened, you would have rationalized it with something else. So, but I suppose it's an interesting question in terms of long-term, like role playing. Like, if players do normally try and have it, because I know in first edition WFRP, the you know, for most players, the long-term character arc was, how do I get into the assassin career, because it's the only one with, like, +3 attacks, so that will objectively make me better in combat. So how do I rationalize getting into that career? And you would flick through the career entrances and
like
work out a
your
route.
path. From wherever
exactly.
You were.
Which was a very mechanical and artificial way of doing it. But in previous games, I don't think I've ever. Like, I don't think I've ever had a long-term character arc. I maybe thought, well, that's the next goal that I want for my character. And I think it's one of the interesting things. If we were writing WFRP 4 now, and you know how there are short-term goals and long-term goals, I think I would want mid-term goals, if that makes sense. Like, if short-term goals are something you can achieve in 1 or 2 sessions, and long-term goals are something you can achieve
the whole campaign,
by the end of a campaign.
Multiple campaigns,
What you actually what you need is something that you can achieve in 5 to 15 sessions, which might be something to do with changing a career, might be, you know, that sort of type of thing. But yeah, and perhaps what you do is you have, like, a midterm with like 2 or 3 short terms within it, and, you know, or something. But
I would also say I'll come back to the other question in a minute, but Sage asked, do you feel like streaming the game has changed how you roleplay, and if so, how? And I would say those ideas of character arcs, like, where are we starting, the discussion you have with Andy Law, to be like, here's where we're starting and here's where the rough plan is, because you consider more, I think, certainly I do, the story and how other people, the people who are consuming the art, will enjoy the story more. And sometimes, certainly, there's times where I've been more one thing or more another, or chosen to, like, be quiet, when if we were all just round a table in our house, we wouldn't be, because we're streaming the game, for sure.
Absolutely.
So people ask me when I tell them about doing the stream, so newbies or the uninitiated into the world of what we do, I'll be like, oh no, I stream RPGs, and then I go, actually no, I don't. I RPP, which I'm coining Ed Silvester TM, role play performance, right? Rather than gaming, because you're doing it for an entertainment value. I'll comment for those in the know and who might be quite up to date. There may have been a slightly contentious episode where something quasi-explosive happened, or do I just mean really explosive? And I knew that making that happen, right? I knew we could have stepped away from that at that point. It was safe, and we could have finished it, and the following things wouldn't have happened, and it would have been fine. But from a performance and from people's enjoyment of it, it's so much better to just to crank it out to 11, to try and make amazing or terrible things happen, because it's that much more responsive, right? And if it was a home game in that situation, I would have shut the fuck up. I wouldn't have said anything about you know what I mean? I wouldn't have just gone put the little glimmer in my eye and just asked that question one more time.
I mean, actually, because to be fair to Ed, because I know that some people have given you grief for that decision. You didn't know it would work when you asked the question, and we had been tasked to try to do it as best we could. I honestly think that you did exactly the right thing for the character you were playing and the story we were telling that night.
Yeah, totally, and I agree with you on that. I will say, as someone who obviously I wasn't in the room, I watched it. The gleam of joy in Ed's eye, the mischievous glint when he did it, I think that's why people gave you grief. Not because you did it, because you had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, well, come on.
You're totally right. You're totally right. There have definitely been conversations as well. Like I love roleplay, and I love the deep character and lore side conversations that you can get, and I do know that a lot of our like viewers like that as well. But within a session where you've got a certain amount of things need to happen to progress the plot, and when there are 7 of you sitting around a table, and with Andy occasionally playing like dozens of NPCs, so actually there's 20 of you sitting around that table, there are times where those conversations you just have to skip past them. And sometimes we're able to go back and revisit them in side streams, or I can then have a chat with Andy and be like, I'd like to talk about this on stream, and we work out a way to bring it in a kind of a future session. But that's the biggest thing for me, has been just biting my lip on stuff and just going, I won't ask that question.
Interestingly, it's made me, especially recently, a little bit more cooperative with Andy Law as a GM. Like a recent stream, I had an idea for something I had wanted to do, but hadn't talked to him beforehand. So strictly speaking, I hadn't said to him, by the way, this isn't a spoiler because you don't know what happens. I've got a cake in my bag. But in the moment, I was like, oh yeah, Alamenoite's got a cake in her bag, which I would never do that. Funnily enough, I was like more confident because we were streaming and I knew it was quite a good thing. And then immediately he was like, yeah, of course, you have a cake in your bag, because he kind of intuitively knew the story I wanted to tell with that. And so I've taken to being a little bit more like getting that. It sometimes feels like when you're not live streaming roleplay, that there's more onus on the GM to entertain you. And I think there's more of a responsibility when you're live streaming for you to work more with the GM in an unspoken way, so you're both entertaining the audience.
Yeah, like it's more of an improv thing, right? It's the yes and of it all, and that's it. There is an obligation to and I think like there's always a bit of that when you're role playing, because it's a communal thing. It's not just you. And I suspect everyone has encountered, and I'm going to be discreet with how I express this, I suspect that everyone has encountered players in the past who have been so committed, perhaps well-intentioned, to playing what their character would do, that they derail the evening for everybody, because like my character just wouldn't do that. And you're like, right, okay, but we're all here together to have fun and do a thing. And by you digging your heels in, can we not maybe talk about why your character would and discuss that out of character, perhaps, if you're struggling, rather than you just in character throwing a strop, refusing to do it, and then spoiling everybody's fun. And I think I just think that pressure is not pressure. That's the wrong word, but that focus is even more the case when you're performing for others as well, because it's if you derail it, you're not just derailing it for your mates, you're derailing it for your mates and everybody who's watching as well.
Yeah. So yeah, Hawk Oddly asks, have you ever called another cast member their character's name off screen? Yeah, like all the time.
I haven't. I'm the other way around. I'm more likely to accidentally call somebody their real name on the stream.
I'll be like saying something to Andy Law and be like meaning to say, oh, Kath says she'll do this, and I'll be like, oh, Birdie said, or it's worse for me with Birdie, Kath, Ed Gerhardt, and Dan Elric, and I think that's because your Discord names are those names as well. So when I'm thinking about you on Discord, that's where my mind is going on our Discord server.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I guess it might also be because I've had so many PCs that you've known as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not associated with just one, but
yeah.
What I think will be interesting, not that I want to make the conversation take a morbid turn, but once one of us dies, which is going to happen soon, will we call their new PC by the old PC's name? That's where I think the pitfalls will start to really happen. But
New Heart.
Yeah, New Heart.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Perfect. No is my answer. I don't think I ever have, actually, surprisingly enough.
But that's because you never get anyone's names right anyway. So
yeah, exactly. Why even risk it? I don't actually know what these two are called. I just sort of like point or talk in that general direction, and hope for the best.
Exactly.
You that, you this.
Yeah. You lady.
Various asked, how do you balance long-term storytelling with the very real possibility that your character has a chance of dying almost at any moment? And there's a follow-up that I'll read out, but then we can come back to. Is there a fear of wasting all that potential? Does it make you more cautious when you're playing? So, yeah. I will preface this within Warhammer. Because you have fate points, you kind of know that if you have a couple of fate points, you're probably not going to die in a particular session.
Yeah. Saying that, the most recent conversation that we had with a certain famous rat-faced beastman,
yes.
Yeah, scared the absolute bejesus out of me because of that specific thing. I usually, right, and I know I've played fast and loose with my fate points, because that's how I quite like to do things, and it's the risk. And also, once again, I like to poke the badger, as it were. That is the audience who then go, "Why have you lost a fate point?" And I go, "Yeah, dance, monkeys, dance." But the whole,
please don't call our audience monkeys.
Well, that's how I perceive them. That's
our
my
lovely viewers.
Thing. Yeah,
dance, lovely viewers. Dance.
So yeah, I've always played fast and loose, but somewhat knowing and trusting Andy, and this might be my own fault because he might not be, he might not play this way, but I don't think he would ever give us death which isn't poignant. You know what I mean? I don't think any of us would die in a way that would just be like, you didn't pass that poison check and you died because you drank some wine in your sleep.
Or like you got out of a carriage, and because the carriage was still moving, he made you make an athletics check that one time when you usually wouldn't have to, and you fumbled it and you died.
Yeah.
I mean, I disagree. I think he might, but only if it felt either narratively satisfying or narratively ironic. Like if it furthered the story, like if it was a good end for the story, I think he would.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like if it was an act of hubris, right? So let's say Leopold turned his back on faith and was cursing the gods and had become this apostate who didn't believe in the gods, and like literally cursed out, I mock the gods, and at that moment got out of a moving carriage and fumbled an athletics test and died. Like that would be an appropriate ending, right? The person who lost their faith, cursed the gods, and then died in a random act of chance that some might interpret as not a random act of chance. Like if there was a story, a satisfying story, and then I think it would. I think that's the chief thing. Not that it's necessarily going to be like poignant or what you would have necessarily chosen for the character, but if it feels like a fitting end.
I also think WFRP, more than any other experience that I've had with RPGs, you know when you're getting yourself into shit. You know what I mean? Like, you know that pulling a sword and starting a fight, someone's getting cut, for lack of a better term. So there is you know the risks associated with it, which means that when you are doing stuff that is dangerous, that's basically it. Is if you draw a sword, or if you go to have a scrap or do something dangerous, that is likely when that'll come for you, and when your chips are very much taken in by Moore himself,
or not,
or not.
I do think that I agree about Warhammer, that it, and the way Andy Law plays it, that you do know. I mean, it doesn't rule out the kind of freak rolls and freak incidents that just sometimes happen when you're role playing. But in general, like if you're in a room with an elector count and you're like rude to them and then draw a dagger, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
that does make me very much fear for Elric's future. But yeah.
Elric. Are you scared of wasting the potential, and does it make you more cautious when you're playing?
No.
Can I add a?
It's like no.
No. Can I add an alternative version of this for you, Ed?
Yeah.
Because this has all been very focused on death. But actually, the biggest threat to Gerhardt, I would argue, recently is mutation.
Okay. Yeah. So
is the answer different if you're thinking about that, or like corruption points and things like that?
No, it's not.
Well, just because your attitude to corruption points now compared to where it was, say, 40 episodes ago.
Yeah, when I had loads,
different.
I had loads of space. Yeah. But again, fate points. I had loads of fate points a few sessions ago. As somebody, I think I'm the only one at the moment with 0. So I've got 0 fate points. I think.
You got none.
I've got none. Birdie's got 1.
Birdie's got 1. Yeah.
I've got none. All I have is the hopefully special one that Alaminowai is potentially saving for.
That's right. Haven't you got one that you
and
can
I've
use
got one that I can use on someone else.
Yeah.
Which would be hilarious if I just go and I'm like, nah, not going to spend it on someone else. So this has somewhat been at the forefront of my mind. I've had conversations with Mr. Law about that follow-up experience. The corruption thing, I think I'm at a level where if I get corrupted, the amount of corruption points I have in me, knowing the way that sort of the crit thing works and everything and all that kind of stuff, it's basically the same as losing.
It's not. So
is it not?
Because a mutation, unless it's changed, is like a D1000 table. It's pure random chance. You might be really lucky. You might get a mutation that like makes you look a bit more prettier and gives you +10 fellowship.
Right, I didn't know this.
You might grow an arm out of your ear.
Interesting.
And what I will say is, Andy, occasionally, if the result you roll is shit, not that it will kill your character because he would let that happen, but if it's just shit, then he might
story-wise.
He might roll a couple and then be like, that's a better story, and but it is broadly random. Yeah,
that's interesting. So I personally, I didn't know that was the case.
Oh no! What have we done, Lindsay? What have we done?
Yeah, because I thought it was just blam. You've taken a certain amount, and now you're over the limit, and start rolling. And because I've got 11,
you do start rolling, but you just roll once you mutate once. You just mutate. You just roll once on the D1000 table, and
Yeah. So in that case, that's different to what I thought it was. So I have no fear now of that happening.
Can we just stress though, it's a D1000 roll, and there are like maybe 5 on there that are positive, right?
Yeah, there's
like 995 that are bad.
Great
and
odds.
Of those, there's like over 900 that will get you anywhere other than the Reichland, get you killed on sight. So
that's fine. I'm sure everything stays in the Reichland, right? That I'm sure this isn't going to move anywhere else.
We're not in the Reichland.
But I know we're not in the Reichland. I know we're not. Look, if that happens as well, I'd love to send him off into the sunset in that sense, and be like, yep, go and be a corrupted Gerhardt. Go and start doing the things for the Lord of Change and getting involved with that and being a bad guy,
become an NPC. Like,
funnily enough, Andy Leask, you did that, didn't you? And my character, and my character was an archer, random, but she probably much better than Elemenowith, because Elemenowith's not that good at most things, but had a choice of whether, and kind of just shot him, not really trying to hit him, and let him go off into the sunset, because he was like, look, I'm gonna go and fight bad guys
as long as I can.
As long as I can.
Yeah. And that was a lovely bookend, because in the first session we played with that character, my character was shot in the back. Andy gave us all like secrets and secret missions, and my character was shot in the back by another PC because he was a traitor, and that was his sort of secret mission. Not Lindsay, another character. And I survived that, and we chased the traitor off, whatever. But it was a nice bookend that several sessions later, after my character, he was already beginning to mutate at the start, that was his secret. So having gone through these heroic things and done these things, when he made that decision, it was getting too bad to go off, to then be shot at, but not actually shot at, was a lovely parallel bookend. And I don't know if you did that deliberately, Lindsay, or if that was just a coincidence, but it was a nice.
I think it was probably a coincidence. I don't think I thought actively about, this will be good for the story. I think I thought about the character and what the character would do, and she just couldn't bring herself to shoot him in the end. When turning Leafast, do you have a fond memory of a long-term character that took a turn you had no idea about when starting the character out?
I've got to think. I'm just thinking through other RPGs now as well.
Well, I mean, we can probably fill a little bit while you're thinking.
You go
for it.
I mean, like, certainly in our... So in the previous campaign, the WFRP campaign that Andy did, that we've spoken about before, the sort of WFRP campaign that ended up linking in with 40k and also linking in with our vampire campaign and being absolutely bonkers. My character in that one was a character I'd originally made for like a different game, and we played a different campaign of WFRP, and I played him for a bit, and then he got kind of gone away, and then we did another thing, and we were playing the Paths of the Damned campaign, and my character died again in a very fitting, dramatic kind of way. And so I brought this other character, Adamar, this kind of wizard in, who features a lot in the WFRP 4th edition book. There's lots of little references to a character who is a something, a raconteur and a liar, and all of those are like aliases that my Grey Wizard kind of used. But he was a character who went... Like, it was interesting, because on the one hand, he went different places, some of it because of just things that happened, but some of it because of the meta plot that Andy had in the background about, like, without going into too much detail, like parallel realities and stuff like that. And like, my character was different in that every time I was like spending a fate point, like a different version of him was attempting to take control.
Cool.
Which meant that his and it took like... I mean, we've been playing for like 6 years before we found that out. Like a very, very long time.
I thought my character had gone back in time for 3 years, and I labored under this delusion for literally, 5 years of real life, and then we found out that actually she'd gone to a parallel world.
Yeah,
it was totally fucked up. It was mad.
Yeah. And Andy like properly messed with our heads in that campaign. It was great. But that was one where I was like, what the hell? And then as the end times approached in that world, and like 40k style psionics started kind of appearing, and we all... And I don't know if... I think Andy had a system for it. I don't know what that system was. It felt very random to us because it was meant to, because it was totally alien. And so like my Grey Wizard also suddenly had access to like amber spells, but also could fly along ley lines, and stuff like that. And like what he could do, he suddenly, from being someone who was all sneaky and a bit thiefy and a bit assassiny, suddenly he could like do like a giant force field dome, and he could like very overtly protect people, which was not who his what his character had been. But it worked. So that I think is the best example of when it's like something metaphysically bonkers happened that fundamentally altered who that character was and what they did. And it was very unusual to play. Yeah.
And we have a shorthand in how we refer to that period in the character's history, and it is Magic Bear.
Magic Bear.
You could turn into a magic bear.
Yeah.
Which was a shock to all of us.
Yes. I think, yeah, nobody more than him.
Nobody more than him. Yeah. What about you, Ed? Have you thought of any?
I've been trying to think this. I don't think I do, unfortunately. Well, I say unfortunately. I just haven't. I've got lots of fond memories of long-term characters, but the way that if you've seen my chat when I was on the Rookery beforehand, you'll know how I came to role playing and all that sort of stuff. And I think it was with you guys that I had this interview or I had this conversation. He says that like some sort of big deal. That's not what I mean. When you talk to people
on one of the many podcast appearances, but
was it on Graham Norton?
Yes, I was in the chair. The way that I played role playing games typically before RPPing, which actually when you say RPPing sounds very weird.
Yeah, that's a very different kind of website.
Yeah, that's a very thing. You need a bottle and to drink a lot of Lucozade. I've always played it as my social thing, right? Where basically we would get together, hang out, usually drink a bit of booze and hang out together. So it was less, there you go. It was less story driven. It was more, and I think I always use this as the reference of like Saturday morning cartoons for us, right? Of like Skeletor's back, and you go, oh, bloody Skeletor. All right, let's go and fucking deal with this guy again. Yeah, exactly. So the long-term character piece, whilst I had long-term characters, they were not what you would think. I wouldn't go and like think about what they were thinking about after playing the game, if that makes sense. When I was DMing, yes, but that's because you've just got more stuff going on and you have to think about those things. But when I was playing as a character and the way that we were playing those campaigns, me and my friends, very much it was about relaxing, taking it easy, and less about making things a believable world and a very dramatic experience and a very sort of, and we're not that serious when we're doing WFRP at the moment. Like obviously there are situations where it calls to it, but I still can't personally summon up that level of acting that's required in those environments, because I like the game. Right, and I like that part of it, and I like the escape from the inevitable crashing life that you live in the real world to go and do terrible things outside. So you don't necessarily want to feel that inevitable crushing thing in a thing where you're going, I'm going to go have fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I also said, I actually really enjoy my life. I don't know why I said that in terms of like a.
It sounded pretty bleak, mate. I was a little.
Yeah,
worried.
Exactly. Yeah, I've got a great life. What a terrible thing to say, but yeah, there you go. So I haven't had enough of a long-term character to get involved with that kind of thing, and that's why.
Sorry, I'm just this is a total tangent, but I'm just laughing when you said that, Ed, because it reminded me of a thing. Quite often when I'm starting to teach my new advanced higher class to kind of challenge them with harder literature, I do T.S. Eliot poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. And it has the famous line, I've measured out my afternoons with coffee spoons. And like to get 16-year-olds to kind of understand that kind of existential crisis of your life kind of passing away with this kind of meaningless repetition, and they don't really get it. And I was trying to contextualize them, and I was like, oh, the example for me would be every week when I put the bins out, and I'm like, and I'm very conscious every week I have to put the bins out. So every week I'm putting the bins out. I'm like, that's another week closer to death. Yeah. And I always said it in a way that I thought was funny.
Thanks, Andy. You know what? I'm going to think every fucking week now I put my bins out.
So sorry.
Gonna die soon.
Well, the other thing is there will be a last time. There'll be a last time when you put the bins out.
No. It's not that you're going to die soon. It's just that you're another week closer. It's that's somehow worse. It's the
That is
soul-crushing,
such a word.
tedious inevitability of it. But that's the point I was making to them every time I'd say it. But I'd laugh, right? Because I was joking with it. And like genuinely, particularly when I was at my last school, because it was not to stereotype, but it was generally true as an all-girls school that they were generally more compassionate and empathetic. Like they always were like, they would stop the lesson and be like, "Are you okay, Mr. Lee? Is everything all right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I'm just making a point about how we're all going to die." Yeah, but are you okay? I'm like, yeah. But we're all gonna die. Do you understand?
Yeah, that was the most surprising thing about parenthood to me is that so I'm really lucky to have two like lovely children who you both know, and they're great. Like absolutely, I wouldn't change a single thing about them. They're just to me, because I'm a parent, perfect, right? Like I was going to say something really inappropriate. I'm really glad I didn't say that. I was going to say they can be little bitches, but no, they absolutely can't. They're perfect. But what I didn't realize was that at every stage, and you don't really know when that has happened. It sort of hits you like a couple of years after, like the person that they were 2 years ago, like they never will be again. And it's not really the experience that you have with your friends or anyone else in your family, but with your kids, and so you don't realize at the time that there's the last time you'll read them a book, and before they go to bed, and all of that kind of stuff. But I didn't really realize that it, like, how happy sad it would be, because you're happy they're moving on, but you've also got this like poignancy for a time and a place that won't be again. And yeah, it was quite surprising to me. I had a character. The reason I was going there is because, and she was really buttoned up and really, really loyal, and really just the very last person you would ever expect to fall and to be a traitor. And she, I would say, was really like abused by the authorities, and really they pushed her loyalty to the limit. And when she finally realized that not everyone had made the same sacrifices, and it wasn't really done with the best intentions, it was done for like different reasons, she just broke. And she fell, and then spent the rest of her existence like trying to fix that fact. And it was quite, what I found really useful about it to reflect on was in WFRP, all of these people that, fall to the dark gods and do things. It's like that thing with your kids. You don't know that you made a decision that would have a massive impact. You don't know when it's the last time you do something. And then you find yourself in this place where that's the only outcome. And I think as a person thinking about that, it kind of gives you more empathy to build like less villainous villains in WFRP, I
more
think.
complex. Yeah,
More
and
complex.
I don't know. Are you talking about Purdy? Is that the
Yeah.
character? Yeah. So like, and I don't know if she'd fallen by the point I'm about to mention, but that's an example of a time when another long-term character took a turn that I wasn't expecting. Was the moment when we were doing the what's it called? The dungeon delve that's like an upside down pyramid.
Yeah. No, yeah. So
Terror
that was yeah.
What's it called?
Lure of the Life Lord.
Lure of the Life Lords. And like that moment at the end where we've been fighting our whole way through this dungeon, trying to get to the thing, and like, and like my character was being the fucking idiot that he was, and like, stealing stuff and triggering curses and traps like all over the place. There's a fancy looking chair. I'll just sit down in that. Oh no, why did I do that? All that kind of stuff. Total knockabout, exactly like the good old days, because our characters had like been close when they were younger, and then been off doing their own thing, and then had come back together again. And it was like the good old days. And then we got to the bottom, and we met this ancient undead creature. And then Lindsay's character like basically knelt down and like not quite placed allegiance, but like was there to like, it's like an ambassador or something to broker a truce.
This was before my character fell, and that was when she was undercover on the Emperor's orders, acting as emissary / wife of Manfred von Karstein. So like it was a big reveal at the end of that. She's like, "Hey, Life Lord, I'm here on behalf of one of the Empire's greatest enemies." But at that time, though, she hadn't fallen. She was still completely loyal.
Meanwhile, my character was there having channeled like a whole bunch of Ulgu, just about to like try and unleash hell, and then be like, "What?" And like that I've never been as wrong-footed by something that happened as I was at that moment. I'm like, Oh, I don't know. I think Andy let us fucking stew on that for a week as well. I think he ended
Oh,
the
he
session
did, because
there.
I literally just said it at the end of the session,
Yeah.
like, "Hi, I'm here from Manfred
Yeah.
to chat."
I was like, what?
Yep.
Awful.
So,
But great.
so yeah,
But great.
John Pick asks, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently if you were just starting?
That's interesting, because you need to go through the things to figure out the stuff. I don't know.
Well, can I ask you something about a change that you sort of made in Gerhardt's interests?
Yeah, sure.
Because obviously the first iteration of him was very arts heavy.
That's
and
true.
When you
Yes.
remade him, you made him less arts heavy and sort of more different kind of lore and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
Was that is that an example? Because Andy's quite nice with that, actually, in terms of long-term stuff, where he does give you the opportunity occasionally to just tweak and slightly retcon things so that you're happier with it.
Yeah. So we had Gerhardt beforehand was a bit more arty, and he enjoyed his music a bit more. I also say so he's actually stopped playing quite a lot because of everything. And that's been a decision that I've made in terms of character changes over time. I've stopped him playing as much music because it doesn't feel right to play music around these sorts of things. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
what's the point in music when you
yeah.
can't save people?
Yeah.
And because he's seeing people
that's
die.
That's why we need music.
No, Andy. No, Andy. He's trying to keep it together. Do you have any idea the amount of people that he's lost and is still trying to just carry on like nothing's wrong?
Yeah.
Like, that is what he is currently doing. He's literally just going, nope, it's okay, it's all right. I'll figure something out. I'll do some more stuff. And considering
what he
last
just found out about his family. Yeah.
So the music thing is the first piece that go. And personally, so I play music personally, and it's for me, it's my stress relief, right? It's the thing that I do.
Yeah, me too.
When I'm a bit pissed off or I'm a bit stressed, I will go and play my guitar for extended period of time, and that stops me cracking. That stops me like getting angry and shouting at people for no apparent reason and all that sort of stuff. Not that I do. I'm not really that kind of person, but I can,
Yes.
Yeah, I absolutely am. The amount of rages I've had in the studio.
I don't know if you find, but I find, because I play my flute for the same reason, and for me, it occupies enough of my mind and my body that I'm not overthinking all the other things in my life.
Yeah, it could be.
That's how it works for me.
I don't know what it does. I don't know why it does it for me. It's just the thing. I think it might be like just repetitive sort of stuff. It's that, or I go and lift up heavy things. And it might just be that repetitive, mindless sort of like I'm never learning a new piece or anything. So I've stopped that, and that's part of those changes. So that's an answer to a previous question, but these are things that sort of go back round and round again. Would I do things differently if I was just starting? I would like to have no, because everything that I've experienced, Andy's been really great in kind of allowing me to do a little bit of everything, which has allowed me to.
That's sort of why I was asking you about the arts thing. Was about whether, if you were doing it differently, would you never have had that be part of his character, or do you like the fact that he had it and then has stopped doing it?
Yeah. Especially because it also represents a time where Gerhardt was that knobhead student just out of university who thinks he can, he's had the most prolific idea, and his writings or poems or music or whatever could change the world, when realistically he's pretty shit at doing it. And he's learned 4 chords, and he's trying to he's playing at open mic night festivals. Because I tend to do this and I go off, I don't actually know how long these streams last, Lindsay.
We've got 6 minutes.
Okay, 6 minutes. Right, I'll do this very, very quickly.
It's not the end of the world if we run over ever so slightly. It's fine.
Cool.
Yeah, to get through all the questions. That's fine.
There's a bar in town, in Edinburgh town, called Captain's Bar, right? Which is a folky bar.
A friend of mine works there.
Okay.
Or used to work there, random.
Yeah,
anyway, the Captain's Bar.
Which I quite like doing. However, sometimes sometimes there are people that are very mediocre musicians and very middle of the road who believe that you should be viewing them as some sort of folk god. You know what I mean? And they will shout at patrons who have bought, beers. They're in bars. Yeah, I recently had I had an altercation in that place. I'm not sure if I'm allowed back actually, because one of the guitarists was, and again, medium of the road, but felt like his thing had to be heard. And it's that self, like, I'm right and I should be heard, and it's that self kind of like knowledge of who you should be and all that kind of thing, that you need to get kicked in the teeth a little bit to figure out that your voice is not the one that needs to be heard. Your voice is just part of just so many other voices in wherever it is. So yes, so the music thing, and part of that is a reflection of the kick in the teeth. So that's why I've taken it out. Or not taken it out, I just don't bring it out as much. Yes, which is that piece. The other thing that I'm looking at, if I was doing it differently when I was starting, if I was starting again, I would do something else entirely different. I'm pondering new characters now because I have to.
Yeah.
And I've got a really nice one that I haven't spoken to Andy Law about, but I'm really excited about, and I think he would work really well. But that arts piece is somewhat linked in with that character.
Interesting.
Slightly.
Interesting.
If that comes to fruition.
And I don't know if you'll do this, but of course the funny thing that Andy could do is whatever your new character is, assuming they're human, they can also look exactly like Gerhardt.
See, I actually had this conversation with Andy.
Look at Lindsay's face there.
I had this conversation with Andy. I said, wouldn't it be amazing if Gerhardt dies and then the guys find him just in the street? It's him, but he's spec'd entirely differently, but he has all the same talents. So
yeah, Alan Menowith at this moment genuinely kind of expects one day that they're going to meet the real Gerhardt, and that somehow, or that actually the switcheroo that happened, like Alan Menowith is kind of the belief that her Gerhardt is Castor Lieberung, and that he didn't die in that coach on the road, and there was some and then one day like Andy and Ed are going to be like, surprise.
I've gone from personally, I've been like, yep, I must be the real him, right? Because I have the conversations with like my father, I have the linkage with everything else, and none of the other people have had that sort of thing. But then I was like, but Castor Lieberung has been around for quite a while. He seems to have he's got a house, he's got a lineage, so that's a person. Is he a clone, or is it just because pre-stream obviously we had that meeting with another Gerhardt looky-likey and Cook, who would have been at Castle. Oh Christ, Newfoundland, yes. So the idea was that potentially there's just been a bit of shagging about from my old man, and so
exactly.
It's like, is it just genes? Has he got good genes, or is it that there's actually clones? What's going on?
Because the Lieberungs are from the kind of Dutchy Ubersreich, right? They are from like down that part, or maybe not quite.
I didn't know that. Sure.
Yeah.
Fuck. I didn't know that as well. So the whole idea of whether I am the real person or anything like that, I've been both. I've had points where I'm like, it doesn't matter, even if you are, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just roll with it, and then it switches to a point. No, it actually genuinely matters. To another point where I'm like, yes, I have to be the real person. Of course I am. Don't be silly. And this is me thinking, not Gerhardt. Again,
Gerhardt remembers his childhood. Like, he's got no reason to think that. Except for the fact that someone might have created those memories.
Exactly, right? So you've got so there's I need to speak to a different one as well.
I think we're due a conversation with Marguerite to explain to us how much of what happened underneath that she was saying was true and how much of it was bluff to get us, not die. But
there's that as well. But I also don't really want to have the conversation just in case. You know what I mean?
Well, Alan Menowith and Loophole can have a conversation with her because we want to know.
I'll get through another couple if you've got time, Ed.
Yeah.
Like a few more. So Hawk Audley asks, how much of your personality bleeds over in your character's mannerisms on the stream, and how much of your character's personality bleeds back through when portraying them?
The verbosity of Gerhardt and the ability to just open your mouth and let your belly rumble. is something I can do, and I do, but only as a method of entertainment for myself. I think that's probably fair, because I don't know, you just like to sometimes have some conversations, and occasionally a little thing grabs you. I grew up in a very loud household, right? So 3 boys and my old man, he's
Dustman? Sorry.
my old man's a dustman. He's a very loud individual as well. So to be heard in the Silvester household, it's not a matter of like everyone's quiet. It's a matter of everyone's talking, and you're listening to 3 conversations happening at once, and you're interjecting into one whilst passively listening to another one. And that has somewhat developed now, where I will have weird multiple conversations. So the whole idea of where I take a little step sideways as Gerhardt and think about something else, or talk about something else and go, oh, that reminds me of this thing, that's very much comes from there. And I mean, we've done a few of these things, and obviously I've got the podcast where I for most of it I am me. So that you tell me, basically, Hawk, you tell me where we get to on that front. I think Andy, you're quite like Leopold personally.
Oh, interesting. I mean, yeah, like I'm consciously trying not to, but I think it does happen sometimes without you necessarily like meaning it to, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah,
because you've got a very I don't know, I guess in doing what you do and also linking it with faith, it is about guiding people to a realization, whether that be knowledge or whether that be faith, kind of thing. And I think that crossover is quite nicely seen in the way that we do it. I mean, I hate the fact that you can hear everything that I say. It's just awful. But
I mean, for what it's worth, he hates it too. Like, he hears, like, you just, I mean, I'm not going to go into the gory details, but let's just, we're living in quite close quarters on that.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
and he can hear everything, everything. Like,
the day after,
to hear all that.
The day after, the nights before, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Every intestinal rumble, he hears it all.
God. So yeah, that's where I'll sort of draw my line on that front, whether you guys want to jump in a bit more too.
My problem usually with characters is that I like puzzles, and I like to work things out, and I like to be like, oh, what does this mean? And sometimes like that's not right for the character that you're playing. So I've really liked some of the side streams that we've done where Andy's given me like a dwarf, or just different characters who don't have that at all, and then I have to kind of like be really disciplined with myself. But it was actually quite liberating when someone else at the table was like, what does this mean? And my character's like, oh, like, who cares? Like, life's too short to worry about that sort of thing. Let's just get on with this. That was quite nice. So yeah, I do have, like, I like a puzzle, and also I'm probably like quite cautious as a person. So sometimes I have to remind myself that my characters will be more like much more just
Risk
different,
positive.
Yeah, take more risks.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, when Andy and I made Leopold, like, we made him because obviously like the Sigmarite warrior priest in the kind of wider kind of meta Warhammer culture, like, have this, like, generally are incredibly intolerant and incredibly dogmatic, and we're like, I have no interest in playing that. And I don't think, and that would have, again, that would be an example of a character that would have derailed the entire party, right? We find out that a certain character has affiliations with a certain group of beastmen, shall we say, and a dogmatic, conventional warrior priest would be like, well, therefore I will smash your head in. And that just wouldn't, so, but equally, I didn't want to just play a character who had no moral compass at all. So we came up with quite a careful idea of like what his view of Sigmarism was, and the way that he was already a bit of an apostate, or already had been kicked out of one order and into another,
Yeah.
because he'd realized that the dogmatic faith wasn't the right way. He didn't believe that was what Sigmar would have wanted, and stuff like that. And what so I'm kind of constantly cleaving to that kind of moral code as close as I can to that moral code that we kind of attached, which, sometimes means I kind of very callously will do things that Andy would be like, that's awful. But it's the right thing to do from his kind of perspective. But also in terms of, and I suppose it's sort of the opposite of what happens a lot with Elric, where he is intentionally quite a kind of anti-authoritarian, kind of outspoken, independent person. Like, there were definitely times where me playing Leopold, I will just acquiesce with what certain, not all, but certain powerful NPCs are saying, because as a Sigmarite warrior priest, he sees it as his job to support them, and just fall into line without any kind of challenge. And that's that. And again, that's another example, like biting your tongue, where I'm like, well, actually, you're very much like Leopold would not cause a scene, would not argue with that, would. So I'm like very consciously suppressing the part of me that might be like, it would be better if somebody challenged this person. Like, that's why occasionally you get moments where looking around, like, out of character, being like, is someone else going to say this? Because I can't.
Yeah. In terms of mannerisms, like Alemenowith doesn't bleed into my life, but when I'm playing other characters, sometimes, because you do her voice so often, like, that's what comes out, and I have to correct myself. But I think for me, like, it was really important that she was really different to me in terms of, like, the way she spoke in the timbre. Like, I speak quite fast and quite high and Scottish, and she kind of doesn't.
Yeah, I do think when you lean so much further away from where you sit in yourself, like, even vocally, that can really help change and move you. Like, playing that Lover of Necks, that in that session, Necromancer, in that one session, and it being slow and deliberating and very much haughty.
I've literally never, like, split that word into two like that
Have you
before.
not? It works really well with Wizards of Fire.
And with Vamp.
Yeah, they made a whole trilogy of films about it, didn't they?
They did, yeah. They made a massive trilogy of films about that.
So confused. What are you all talking about?
You genuinely don't get it?
I genuinely don't. Remember, like, I got Central Perk, the joke in Friends about the cafe, the same episode that Phoebe got it. So,
Right.
What are fire wizards called, Lindsay?
Oh, pyromancers.
Yeah.
Then American Pie, and then there you go.
I've got you now.
Yeah. So changing the voice and the pacing of speaking can move it so much away from your personality in the first place that it actually makes it so much easier, which is what I think I might be doing with the next role, as much as I can, because right now Gerhardt is close to my current voice. I mean, I posh it up a bit, but I'm still pretty. I know I sound pretty posh as a standard. You know what I mean?
Aye, we know.
Oh, hey! Oh, Scotland! Can't do a Scottish accent at all.
Yeah, we know.
So, how do you know when a character story has come to an end, especially if it isn't just the campaign's end? When do you know it's time to retire a character?
I suppose when you look at it and you're not having any fun.
Yeah,
like that's the big indicator, right? Or you don't care. Not fun or don't care, right? Yeah. Because it's going, I'm not having fun because bad stuff's happening to me, but I care about that. You know what I mean? Like, oh no, this is terrible, but I care, so that's fine. But if like bad shit's happening to you and you're just like, oh, all right, another day. Yeah. And that's when you know, basically.
And that's when a bad player can get quite disruptive to the group. Whereas a good player will say to the GM, like, I'm not really feeling this character. Can we come up with a way for a graceful exit?
Yeah, or just to switch it up. Because it might just be a specific thing that's not really gelling, and then just a little bit of story kind of in a certain direction. Sorry, that was story just to reestablish that in a certain direction can change it.
Yeah, Quintus says Jerry the Badger must return.
Jerry the Badger. That is he's somewhat already an albatross around my neck.
Jerry the Badger.
The fact I
So
can't remember him is yeah.
So when Turning Leaf says, do you prefer having long-term plans for your character build that you try to stick to, or leaving XP spending up to circumstance and interest?
I'm quite bad at doing the character admin between episodes, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Lucas is sitting on so much right now, and I need to sit down and.
But of course,
he's dead. He's dead.
Can he? Yeah.
It doesn't matter. He's dead. He's dead.
Yeah.
Just put it all into toughness.
That's not a spoiler.
It'll be for the best for him. Toughness and endurance. Just put it all into that.
So I tend to, a lot of the time when it comes to character build, as you can see, I spent a long time where I was just like, I don't want to fail any intelligence rolls. I want to be that fucking smart. So I'm just going to smash it all into the attribute.
Attribute. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The attribute. So just smash it into intelligence. And then Andy, and I can understand why he did this, came up with the whole advanced successes need to be done by advancing that skill.
I wouldn't take that personally. He didn't do that like for you. Like,
no, I know.
Yeah. He's had a variant of that system in our earlier campaigns and another one. So
yeah. But we brought it in and then I was sort of going like, oh, what the, like, I'm sort of sitting there going, that's annoying, like but now I realize it's because it's the Dungeons and Dragons, you rolled a natural 20 on whatever thing you're trying to do, and even if you've never been that strong, you've done that thing, and it shouldn't, like, there's no way that you should be stronger than this person who is physically massive and you're a tiny little gnomey person. It makes so much sense. So you can see, I mean, I've dealt with that now, and I've got some really good stuff in the things that he does, and that's great, and that's what I want to do. And now that we're in a higher echelon of the physician career, there's one talent that I am absolutely loving, and I've already spaffed 3 advances into it, and I will be putting more into it because it's just naughty and dangerous, and I really like it, and I'm really looking forward to the day where I can just bang that out and it be really good.
Do we not know what to? Don't tell us then.
I think Andy knows it, because I sort of sat next to him and we had a conversation around it, and I went, fucking hell, that's bloody brilliant. And we went, yeah, it is really good if you spend the time and thingy it. So I'm looking forward to that happening. So no, I don't have a long-term plan. It's not Tower of Memories. Tower of Memories I've missed actually, which is really annoying, because or I have to go back into Scholar to get Tower of Memories. In answer to your question there, Schmidt. So no, I don't really have long-term plans. It's I save up a load, and then I look at it and I go, that'll be good, and then I just push it all into that. So it used to be I'd buy luck and I would just advance luck, which is why I still have fortune points. And then it would then switch over to the one where you get the toughness bonus. What's that called?
Hardy.
Hardy.
No, the wounds bonus. Yeah.
Yes. So Hardy. So I was like, that's amazing. Let's just chuck everything into that one. And then everything else has got maybe 1 or 2. I've got 1 in Blather because that never fucking works. I've got 1 in Supernumerate because that never fucking works.
I had got luck as a random talent, and I put a bit of experience into luck. So I put like 2 or 3 times, thinking, because I only had started with 1 fate point, like 1 fortune point, so that gave me like 4 fortune points. What I didn't realize was potentially that had like a spiritual detriment on Alamanwith, because it's not in any of her careers, and it's almost like glimpses of the future. So by buying luck, it's almost like, so now
that's interesting.
I keep a record these days of everything that happens in the sessions, and I try to challenge myself to not use fortune points, to be like limiting her spiritual endangerment. So yeah. Which is not something I at all envisaged when I was doing the character build and spending the XP at the start. Like, but for me, the long-term plans really are like I need so much experience to finish the path and the career, but also to represent like everything she's done. Because she kind of gets away with it because she's got attributes that are quite high and a little scattering of everything. But I do really feel like if she'd really lived for 30 years doing the jobs that she's done, like elves a little bit maybe develop more slowly, but I do think there's certain things she'd probably be better at. And so every time she kind of gets better at them, I'm just sort of rationalizing it with, well, for whatever Alamenoise stupid reason, she just did it badly in the past because that was the character that she was playing.
And
so
I
like
guess you've always got the addiction thing as well, which could have been a factor. You know, she was underperforming because, you know,
Exactly, yeah. She doesn't have performance enhancing drugs. She has performance reducing drugs.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
And then finally, here's our last question. So Winternly Fast, for long-term campaigns, do you prefer to start a character at an idea for a person to build mechanically, or at an idea for a mechanical build that can inspire a personality?
Well, I think I've sort of answered this in the way that I approached the other piece. And so I do mechanical into personality.
A person, yeah.
Yeah. Or at least I try to, because then it makes everything sort of makes sense.
Me too. I'm kind of the same. Like I do like to sometimes Andy Law will have an idea for us, like he did for this this campaign, but it still depended on like what I rolled, and the fact that she rolled luck as a random talent was interesting, and some of those things helped inform it.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to start more at the person.
You do, yeah.
But then it gets nudged by that. I mean, that's the nice thing about character creation in WFRP is the slightly random element of it. I like that because you can have a kind of concept, but then the random stuff can kind of inform that. And if you want to lean really into the pre-built version, you just have less XP to start with, and that's fine. You're more controlled, or you can totally embrace chaos, or you can go somewhere in between the two, and which is kind of where I lie, where I'm like, kind of want to do this, but that's an interesting thing. Well, let's add that wrinkle and let's turn them into that. And
yeah. If you want an example of that recently, you can see of two completely different approaches. You can watch Erin, the Corner Goblin's character creation stream, because Erin had an idea based on her granddad of what she wanted to do, and I was just along for the ride to make a character to go along with Erin. So I was completely directed by the roles that I got, and ended up making like kind of a Tillian sort of second generation immigrant who had a bit of a chip on her shoulder about the way her family had been treated as less intelligent because Reichspiel was their second language, and that all just came from the roles, really.
Nice. I haven't watched that yet.
It was fun, and I do hope I'll get to play her because I quite like her, and she has something that Alamenoise doesn't have and doesn't really have an interest in, that is a personal interest of mine, and that is linguistics. She's interested in finding the first language. Because, of course, in our world, there isn't, like, the Tower of Babel, but in Warhammer, there's conceivably the first language. So, yeah. Andy's put it up. So, yeah, that brings us to the end of our stream. Thank you very much for joining us, Ed. We hope you won't wait 3 seasons to come back next time.
I think you've made that up. I genuinely think it's just falsified. Just like, 3 seasons, something like that. Time's passed.
Yeah. Well, thank you as always to all of our patrons who make the streams possible. Thank you to our Discord community who submitted all the questions, and please do join us next week for another Inside the Rookery. And in the meantime, if you want to chat about this one or chat with any of the cast, join us on our Discord server, either for Rookery publications for Inside the Rookery or the LAWhammer one if you want to chat to Ed. Until the next time, I will speak to you all soon. Good night and caw-caw, caw-caw.
Love you, bye!